Welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Perotzman. In today's episode, we'll be talking about becoming sound healers. Both Chris and I have accepted that particular aspect of our music making and take our responsibilities seriously when we perform in that role. But that doesn't always mean we get all serious and esoteric about it. As we talk about sound healing, you'll begin to understand that you can give yourself healing music for almost any purpose. And we hope you'll accept the invitation to dig deeply into the music you love and begin to apply specific music to specific purposes in your own life. We'll be talking about all that and much, much more, as always, in these open conversations, here on Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness. Okay, so 3, 2, 1.
Action.
Speed. Why do they say speed?
So speeding is a term in film for rolling the sound. Where that originates from, I forget. There is a reason for it. It's really cool though. The devices that they use on film sets to record not only sound but to keep the sound synchronized with the film, with the video. It's called a clock, basically, or time code. Sorry, it's called time code, and there's an actual device that keeps the audio and the video all synchronized together on set. And the way that it synchronizes is it uses crystal, just like you would in a crystal hand watch or things like that. So if it's the craziest thing that sometimes we forget that a lot of our technical devices still come back to we use these organic materials to still, do high-tech things like a crystal. Where do the computer chips come from? Silicone, right? Silicone comes from crystal. And my love of this, ancient, especially ancient alternative history, there's so much use of these crystals in the distant past. And you got to wonder, were they tapping into the way that crystals keep time? Crystals create energy, piezoelectric energy from crystals, and they store information. And when I'm walking by some of these ancient sites, I'm always like, man, if I only had the ancient equivalent of a USB stick, I could just plug it in and maybe download all the hidden mysteries of our crazy, interesting past.
How weird. I mean, to think,
so cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And now they're well, the clock is probably going to remain the same, although atomic clocks use something else. But syncing up with that kind of vibration, isn't that exactly what sound healing actually is?
Well, I guess, yeah, in a way, totally, right? You're kind of like synchronizing your body in a way, or your mind, or your emotional body with frequencies, with sound. And that's probably what they're doing. I mean, we don't really know all of what's going on with sound therapy, which is why sometimes it gets a bad rep. But that's also why it sometimes gets a good rep, is because it's still a mystery, but people walk out of their sessions feeling pretty incredible. I've certainly experienced that a lot. And you don't know why.
It never really concerned me, Chris. For a long time, I'd just go, I play the piano, I feel better now. Yeah. And without thinking about it too much. But then when I started to think about it, I discovered this swamp. In the swamp, there's all this stuff, like there's music therapy in there, which is credentialed and board certified and has protocols and only works on certain things and is very, very well researched and evidence-based and all of that. And then in the same swamp, there's the thousands of years of evidence we have around frequency and sound healing.
Yeah.
And, I'm just playing Beethoven at the piano. I don't know all this stuff. Yeah. And, I'm feeling better. So why? And of course, science can help explain the part of it that they've been able to research, but there's so much to this.
Well, why have choirs always existed? In the church of all around the world, we have all these chants and singing. And is it just to feel good? Is it just for fun, or is it just for superstitious, religious kind of connotations, or is there something more as to why we've always been singing, especially singing in groups, creating harmony? Why has that existed for so long? Maybe it's because it actually helps us. Maybe it's because it actually does something to our consciousness, to our physical body, and we're just almost remembering maybe a more ancient technology that we used to use to heal ourselves, right? Through frequency and sound.
I love the remembering. It's like putting your members back together.
Yeah, remembered.
Yes, I've now been remembered. But it is reconstruction in a way because from what we know, at least the scientific stuff, is things align. And, alignment is better than chaos
Certainly for
in
your
a really
body.
big general sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, we like being aligned. I've been thinking about things like, do you know about CRISPR? Have we ever talked about CRISPR, the DNA editing strategy?
Right.
Or,
We haven't
or
talked about it though. I've heard of it though.
it's
Yeah.
it's cool to me. I mean, that this can be done. And CRISPR is like, the $1.95 cancer cure because you really can do this gene editing thing very economically. It's like ridiculously economic to do this stuff. And presto, you've got new genes, that don't carry this or that. And when I think about the way that vibration works on us, I feel like in some senses, getting a disorganized vibe into an organized vibe, to be very broad and non-scientific about it, is a similar thing. We know that we can change our DNA by how we express stuff. Thank you. What's his name? The scientist who discovered this and started epigenetics back in the day.
Oh, I forget. Yeah.
Yeah, but we know that's a thing. So if music helps to do that, I'd say that's healing. Put me down. I want one of those.
It's like a gene therapy.
Yeah, I mean, but we know music goes way beyond the physical reorganization of stuff, but it certainly reorganizes stuff. And if a crystal can do that, we can sync up with can't really hear a crystal, but we can hear some of them. We bring the frequencies down in crystal bowls. We can hear that. That's some powerful stuff right there.
Absolutely. And even in my sessions that I do one-on-one, my clients, and this happened accidentally, but it was actually intuitively. I just thought, I'm like, I'm going to bring my rose quartz crystals just down on the ground while they're lying on the ground. But I didn't think anything of it. And then my client instinctively just kind of grabbed both crystals with one hand and the other hand. And she told me afterwards that she's like, it felt so much better because she could feel the vibration of the music I was playing through the crystals.
Yeah.
And then they would go into her hand and she was able to absorb even more of the healing frequencies that I was generating for her. And that was just by accident, but we just now do it every session just
every time. Yeah.
Because it feels good. She's
that tactile thing, you can hold on to
exactly
vibrating stuff. That's so much better. That we both play keyboard, but so much better to play a grand piano because you feel the vibration in your fingertips.
Yeah, or acoustic guitar, things
acoustic
like that.
Acoustic guitar, upright bass.
Feel it. Yeah.
Cello, whatever makes that vibration happen. Giant speakers, house beat.
Great. Whatever works.
Whatever works. And I don't know if we want to wander off into frequency right now, so let's not do that. But I have a really interesting question for you, which is, and maybe we'll both share here, but how did you become a sound healer? Like, how did you accept the mantle, put on the hat, put up a sign and say, yeah, I do this?
I don't think there was any official, ceremony, let's say, that happened. That's the thing about sound healers, especially. I mean, you can go through sound healing certification, but they'll take you through, much like music therapy, a more specific path, and it involves specifically crystal healing bowls, using the bowls, and of course, using sound and frequency, but really focuses on that main instrument of the bowls.
Yeah.
And I don't use crystal healing bowls in my sound healing. So right off the bat, that's quite different from most of the well, I wouldn't even know if it's a traditional mode of education, but here in Canada, there are, I think, 2 institutions that teach and certify you in sound healing, and they both focus on the crystal bowls, but they come from a more, one's at the Institute of Traditional Chinese Medicine in Toronto. And so this is coming from institution that teaches, Qigong and Tai Chi and, acupuncture and things like, the traditional Eastern, traditional Chinese medicine types of things. And
Herbs.
That's great. Herbs, all that stuff, like Chinese massage, all that stuff. And once again, I veered off of that traditional teaching as well. So I think for me, it was more kind of just happened. It wasn't really a decision I made to become that. It really, as a lot of these things in life, they just happen. And so it started for me playing music at old age homes, senior homes, retirement homes, right out of college. I saw how music could just bypass everything in the brain of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's people, and all of a sudden they're 18 years old again, and they're moving and they're mobile and they're singing and they're dancing, and I would hear from their caregivers like that doesn't happen, that Susie doesn't dance like that, or
Yeah.
Dave doesn't like, he hasn't been able to move out of his chair, and all of a sudden you're playing an Elvis song and he's dancing. And so I saw firsthand the power of music. And so I got curious after that. I got really curious. And that just kind of led down the rabbit hole of further research. You start to find out about binaural beats, 432 hertz tuning of your instruments, why that's more harmonious for the cells in your body, your DNA, and so on and so forth. So it was really maybe about a year and a half, maybe 2.5 years ago, where I got approached by a couple of friends who knew I was dabbling in this stuff, but I still wasn't officially really going anywhere with it. I was just really interested. And
Yeah.
they're like, could you write some meditation music for me? I'm like, oh, okay. Because these were, practitioners who would be leading other groups and clients and stuff. And they knew they needed music that did a little bit more than just relax. Like, it's nice to have soothing spa music, but, could we have something a bit more specific? And so for those jobs, I had to research more. And then I started to learn, oh, this is how you write binaural beats. This is how you create certain frequencies that, limited, but still some research has shown to be helpful, like we've talked about before, 40
Yeah. Yeah.
hertz, things like that. So I started, because of these just inquiries from friends, having to learn more. And much like some of the things that I think people end up getting into that are, like yourself, Bill, it's a very niche and kind of a pioneered, modality or practice that you're offering your clients. It's the same thing for me. It just kind of happens. And so yeah, I just got asked enough, and I had to research to figure these things out. And then maybe about 6 months ago, I got even more into what an actual healing session would look like, because once again I had a friend come to me and ask, Chris, can you give me a one-on-one sound healing? And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I was just like, okay, sure, like I'll do the best I can, and I'll put together the knowledge I have, and I'll put the 432 hertz tuning together on my piano, on my keyboard, because I usually play like synthesizers and other tones and textures, and then I'll put the binaural beats into it as well. I like to sprinkle in a bit of nature soundscape, because it just relaxes everybody. And then I led them through a bit of a yoga nidra type of body scan, because I personally love that, and I find it very relaxing. And then some, affirmations, or, words to reprogram limiting beliefs or things
Yeah.
that are not going well in someone's life, which is why they're in the session. And then boom, I have a session, template, so to speak, created, because once again, it was asked of me to do it. So I don't think I ever made a choice to become this. Is the long-winded answer.
You were chosen.
I was chosen.
And, a lot of musicians have that opportunity and take it or not. And that's totally cool. Personally, I think the more musicians that take it, the better.
Yeah.
Even if your job is standing in front of 40,000 people, twice a week, just saying from the stage, hey, this music stuff, this is some powerful shit, man. And it works.
Yeah.
If you want to know more, Google music therapy, or do something, just like an advocate for it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're standing up there and 40,000 people singing along to your music is powerful. That's something happening.
Well, that goes back to the choirs and the chants.
There you go. Yeah.
That's why groups of people get together and sing, because it feels so damn good.
Yeah.
And we know why to some degree, but there's also a lot of mystery as to why. At the end of the day, it's harmony, and there's something, like you were saying, coherence, or alignment, right? When
Alignment.
Everyone from all these different backgrounds and different opinions and different ways of life, but they come together, they all sing. All of a sudden, those differences harmonize together, and you're aligned, and you sounding amazing, and you're one voice all of a sudden, one organism, and it's absolutely special, very magical.
Yeah, being in that moment is, whether it's in a church where there's 3 people, some chanting or something, or 30,000 people. It's just incredible to feel that.
I mean, that makes me now curious as for you, Bill, like what got you into your specific modality? Because I don't think we've actually done our origin stories to this degree. Plus, I'm actually I'm curious because I was there a catalyst moment for you, or was it something similar where people were just asking like, Bill, like what like what kind of music should I be listening to right now, or like how did music care evolve? Because that's
Actually, yeah.
it's such a specific thing. Like we were saying at the beginning of the podcast, where these are not things that I don't think any musician goes into music school or into the industry thing. Like, yeah, I'm clearly going to design a program and a company that helps people choose the perfect music for what they're going through in their life. I don't think that really happens.
No, it doesn't happen in music school. I can
No.
vouch for that. It's all about playing good.
I know.
And knowing theory. So, good question. So I was doing like one-man shows for a while. And somewhere along the way, some friends told me that in their hometown of Santa Fe, New Mexico, there was a guy with a large grand piano, and he would have people come in and lie under the piano for sound healing sessions.
Cool.
And I had a large grand piano. I mean, I didn't have a concert grand like this guy did, but I thought, hey, I'll put this on my website. So I did. And I called it music therapy. Oops. I should have stayed with sound healing. Yeah. But I called it music therapy, and a music therapist out of nowhere came along and said, so what's your credentials? Who did you study with? Where's your degree from? And I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. And out of great respect for music therapy, I immediately took the page down. I never thought about it again, putting it up, But the healing didn't stop. That sort of awareness that people are changing when they listen to music it gets under your skin. And you want to know why. And so I began to learn at that moment and learn more and more about what's going on. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized that, and again, no disrespect, music therapy is incredible. But someone who stands up in church and sings, just somebody in the congregation who sings, is giving themselves music therapy. Whether or not they know it. Now, the therapist would disagree because to have a therapeutic relationship, where there's a therapeutic goal and all of that, and there's like counseling going on and psychological stuff and whatever. So that's like the more credentialed side of music therapy, protocols, all of that, and that's amazing. That's wonderful. But someone who's singing in church is doing something that they may or may not understand. And as I began to realize that, I started to notice how many times in my life music has been there to support me. Oftentimes it's an emotional journey. Sometimes it's physical. Like headaches are a great thing to apply music therapy to. And I'm using that term loosely. I should probably say sound healing, but it's all right to apply the power of music to. Yeah. Headaches respond really well to that, at least for me. And a lot of other stuff too, like all that dementia and Alzheimer's research came out, and the movie Alive Inside with people who had no effect at all, put headphones on, and they started tapping their toes and singing and conversing with their caregivers. This is amazing stuff. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to know more. And I realized pretty quickly that the amount of knowledge that could come from music therapy was specifically limited by the scientific method. There aren't that many music therapists in the world. I mean, compared to other sciences, it's a relatively small number. So to do research and make a living as a music therapist is a big deal. Turns out it's a big deal for most people. So if you're teaching as a professor somewhere and you have tenure in a university, you're expected to publish X number of things, and that you're also expected to do the research to support those things. And that's like 3 full-time jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So, and given the state of the world these days, music therapists are busy people.
Yeah.
And sound healers are starting to be probably really busy people too, because they're looking for any kind of relief. So the more I wandered down this rabbit hole, it started to occur to me that if there was a way that people could learn to sort of unlock the power of music to give themselves treatment, and I'm using that word on purpose, to give themselves treatment with music, then we could really make some progress here. Could really open it up and start to build awareness of how it's not just, music in your headphones or whatever, or music you listen to at a concert, but there's something else going on. So I've been an advocate of that something else for a long time, and helping people to engage with that and then putting together specific ways to engage with that has been the subject of my life now for 20 something years with music care. And there are lots of ways to do that, as you know. You can come in and passively have a sound bath, or you can come in and participate in a drum circle.
Mm-hmm.
where you can come in and sing together with other people. This recreational music making is what the technical term for all that is. And that's wonderful stuff. And music therapists do that. And it's really powerful. But hey, you can drum at home. For a while, my wife and I and the kids all had drums, and we do like home drum circles. And it was great to watch, kids middle school, high school age to sort of open up around making music together in the family. I don't know if that's strength in the family or whatever. Who knows what the results of that are? And there's no longitudinal studies that I can refer to on this. But hey,
you feel it.
You feel it. And drumming together with your family is probably better than not, or better than like sitting in front of a flat screen or several flat screens, right? So it's been like that, Chris. And along the way, I don't know, at some point in the late 2000s, I guess, I figured it was time when a therapist encouraged me to take what I do to traumatized veterans, that I should probably form a more formal organization around this. And so I did, and that's Music Care. And I've gotten to participate in some amazing not-for-profits that are doing this. Guitars for Vets teaches veterans to play the guitar because it helps with post-traumatic stress. And they've got studies to prove that. And help is, it's a few points better than it was before, but a few points better from $200 maybe guitar if you can buy a really expensive one and some effort. That's a great improvement versus what we were doing at the time, talk therapy. Those who knew about them were using psychedelics, but the treatment for post-traumatic stress has been really a long time coming.
Yeah.
So I got to be in Guitars for Vets for a while. That was amazing. I don't play, but I can tune a guitar and help people learn it. And that was enough to get people started on giving themselves therapy with music. And I've been teaching this to at-risk people for a long time. But the coolest thing is not so much that I feel like I'm in competition with the sound healers or competition with the music therapists, because healing happens in a concert. I don't have to be like giving you a healing. You're going to show up and the music's going to work on you.
Yeah.
But to be able to say, hey, if you want to repeat that, there's a way to do it. It's not hard. It takes a little effort, but is it you and a little effort, or is it you and thousands of dollars later with a talk therapist, or is it you and all of this? We were giving black box medications to people who are traumatized. Good Lord, what do you mean? You're gonna
I know, like there's the pharmaceutical route. There's so many other. There's some pretty not great options that are out there and that are still more mainstream in a way.
Yeah, and this is what the VA was doing for its own wounded clients. Anyway. Be that as it may, we're evolving. And here we are now in the pandemic, and psychedelics have come full circle, and they're coming online, and people are understanding that, and they're using them with music. So people are starting to get the medical tie-in to the musical vibrational healing world. Isn't that powerful? I mean, that just tees up more business for you and for me.
It's great from a business standpoint for sure. And it's also, I just got back from a 10-day tour with a musician friend from Toronto. It was really
right.
fun.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
It was fun to be playing music, just traditional, good old entertainment.
Yeah.
I have been
4/4 time with a beat.
Yeah, I know, like just some classic blues and rock music, like nothing, like the real basics. And it was so nice to just be back to that for a bit. And but on the tour, we did have one day where we played a festival. The artist I was performing with, his name's Tennyson King, and he's kind of like his style of music's like John Mayer meets Jack Johnson, Bon Iver. Nice. But his lyrics are very empowering, and so even though he's a traditional artist in terms of, well, we're talking like just musical entertainment here,
right?
His music is a good example of, once again, he gets everyone singing together, he gets everyone engaged. So you're having that traditional healing experience that you would have at any good concert where you're singing, you're engaged, all that kind of stuff. So that would be his show. And then when we played the festival, we performed in the evening, and then the next day in the morning, or actually around noon, I co-led a music healing workshop with him as well, and he backed me up on this beautiful Chinese guitar, traditional Chinese guitar that he ran through some of his guitar effects, and it was beautiful ambient gorgeousness. And I led a workshop explaining to people what the heck is music healing, sound healing, And then I gave them a little sample where everyone lay down on the grass on their yoga mats. We were
Yeah.
outside. It was beautiful, beautiful day. And then I took them through like a shortened, 20-minute journey, and then that was that. But we incorporated that as a part of the festival because the festival was looking for things like this, and that's another sign. Once again, this is a festival that the typical, this is small town Canada in the mountains, and it's mostly like a lot of country, a lot of rock, a lot of blues, pretty traditional types of music that are getting played and are getting asked to be performed at these festivals. Yet here they are asking for music healing, or being very not only open but being like, oh my God, you guys have a workshop that you can offer to show people the healing power of music. Please, like, yes, please, we'll pay you. Like this is a really important thing that we want to have as a part of our festival. So
Nice.
that
Yeah.
shows you where the level of consciousness is now. With this is a like I said, very traditional. These are not. Sometimes you get the festivals that are a bit more, the yogis and the more hippie kind of
Yeah.
crowd.
Whole Earth
Where,
Festival.
yeah, you would expect maybe something a bit more like that, and then that's cool too. But this was not that kind of a festival. I want to make
This
that
is like more
clear.
mainstream, and they wanted
Very
sound healing.
exactly. This is a
Yeah.
mainstream kind of festival, small time, but still mainstream, and they wanted sound healing. So that is a great example of where we're at right now. We're seeing the psychedelics, like you said, they're coming very much online because now they're legally allowed to be studied, and the results are spectacular with what's going on. So that's becoming more accepted by the average person, by the mainstream. And so yeah, we're in a cool golden age right now for sound healing, and it's very exciting. And I learned for myself on that tour that I really, the one-on-one stuff is cool, but I love the group stuff a lot more. I really want to focus more on the group sound healing because, like you said, it's that experience that you get at a concert or in a church where you're with a group of people singing together, and that I find can compound the effects that a normal one-on-one session would give you. Now you can go more specific with a one-on-one session, of
Yeah,
course,
you
to
can deal with, like,
that person's needs, right? Like, you
yeah.
can go really, really specific. But with the group stuff, it excited me a lot because it was a nice bridge between my old world of just entertaining people at a concert and then now offering the sound and music healing, but for more than just one person. So, yeah, really cool to see how that's being accepted now by the average Joe.
Yeah, and it seems totally normal. It's you don't have to explain it. People go, "Oh
No.
yeah, sound bath. I've heard of that. What is that like?"
And when they ask, like, well, what is it? They're not asking like this sounds like a load of hogwash
Yeah,
BS like
yeah,
nonsense. They're asking because they're genuinely curious, and so that's why I was asked to do not only a music healing, but it was a music healing workshop. Meaning the first half of it was just me talking about what on earth it is, how it works, what are healing frequencies, what's 432 hertz tuning, what are binaural beats, all that kind of stuff, because they're interested. And these were people of a whole
yeah.
variety of ages. We had a couple in their 30s, we had some people in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I think one person was in their 80s, and they were the most curious about it.
Yeah.
So I was really excited, and I was really reassured, I think, that this is something that's not going to be a fad. This is definitely something that's going to grow and expand so much more in the next coming decades, for sure.
It completely has grown. I grew up classical, right? So all of the early concerts I went to, and they're still that way. That you go to the temple of classical music and you wear something nice. Well, in San Diego, we wear whatever we want. But
Yeah.
and now, by the way, you can finally take a cocktail into the auditorium for the,
Oh
I don't
my
know,
God!
last few years,
Finally.
right? So we've been waiting for that. Um, but if you ever wanted to be anybody, and show off, if you were a big donor, you'd build an auditorium or fund the opera or that kind of thing. And it's becoming more, even in the classical world, more mainstream. I love what conductors like Dudamel and the LA Philharmonic has done to create a complete connection to the community that is all about music. Yeah, it's classical when he stands up, but it's about music. And I'd even go so far as to say we're kind of in the era right now of learning to be our own individual sound healers for those who are interested. I mean, look at Stranger
Mm,
Things. It's the awareness is so profound right
I
now.
know.
And why not, right? That both Chris and I sort of stumbled into it because we paid attention to what was happening. And that's fantastic. And I know you can get certified to bang on a crystal bowl and be a sound healer. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the intention. And that is the beautiful thing. I think here we are supplying, to the demand. We're the suppliers,
Yep.
but the intention is out there for other ways of becoming well,
That's really
right?
what it is, right?
Mentally, emotionally, physically. It's like, how do I get well? Please show me.
Well,
Right?
we're like you said, this world is in desperate need of that, right? There's so
Desperate.
many people that are just really having a hard time of it, and understandably, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's just the Western medicine approach is just not cutting it anymore. And I think the last 2 years have really shown that Western medicine is not all it's made up to be. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not this. We are not at this pinnacle of high tech. Like, we've figured it out. We've clearly got it all worked out, guys. Western medicine is going to save you from every possible thing that's going on. No, actually, if anything, it might be causing a bit of some of the issues too, and we need to go back and actually look at other ways that we can do what we're trying to do through these pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
And you start to look at other alternatives, and then you start to look at history, and you go, interesting. We've been doing very different things for literally thousands of years. And as we know, with some of the modalities that have become popular from thousands of years ago, like meditation, like yoga, like, some traditional Chinese medicine, like I always
Acupuncture.
like to use acupuncture because acupuncture is completely acknowledged by Western medicine, but there's nothing physical happening other than poking you with a little,
Yeah.
pin,
Yeah.
or needle. But like, it's the physical thing and the relief and the modality that acupuncture is using is the meridians of your body, the energy meridians that are not visible. They are non-physical. You can't even measure them really, although there's some cutting edge stuff that is getting close to being able to do that. But this is a modality that you can't measure, yet it is accepted by Western medicine. You can get it on most of your drug plans now with any common,
Yep.
company that you work with, and yet we don't know really how it actually works because it's using these energy meridians, non-physical things that happen in our
But
body, but
having
it
said that,
works.
I'd rather have a certified acupuncturist poking pins in me than somebody who just picked it up, because they were familiar with how it worked and they had esoteric knowledge. So there's a place where I'm willing to trust people, you know.
Yeah.
But when it comes to poking me with a pin, and having said that, of course, my acupuncturist showed me how I could use essential oils and on the same place as the needles, reactivate the energy meridian.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. Let's get this knowledge out there because, with your ability to treat yourself with music and to, work on the energy meridians, you need a little muscle testing to determine what needs to happen. I mean, you almost have a complete self-care toolkit there.
Well, we do. We totally do. The problem is that's not going to make really a lot of money for some certain companies, and
Yes,
that's
yes,
and
a
that's
big
where
pharma and all, yeah.
we get back to that thing because that's really what's stopping, I think, a lot of the progress. But it's so cool because we really are, and I keep trying to. I've been saying this for so many years, well before the last 2 years. I mean, like for the last decade, I feel like for me, I've just been like, I know that we are very incredible machines. These bodies, these human bodies of ours, are incredible machines. I think we just don't know how to use them properly. I feel like we've got a high tech device that we're kind of like banging against the wall, and it's like someone coming across a computer but not knowing how to turn it
Yeah,
on. They're just
what
kind
do
of
I do?
looking at like this little device, like this box or this little thing, and be like, what the heck is this thing? I think if I do a couple of things, something might happen, but they have no idea. We don't have any idea of the vast potential of what we can actually do and what we can actually just as ourselves, accomplish, right? And that's what these things are showing us is that, all we need to do is lie down and absorb some frequency. Oh wait, we
Right?
can do that ourselves too. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course you can, right?
And here's
And
the thing. With recordings made by musicians, hello, musicians are about to become very valuable in our world.
heck
Like,
yeah.
what is it, John Hopkins, the guy who has made all those psychedelic trip, uh,
Yep. Psilocybin journey
yeah,
music.
music. I mean, yes, go. But why isn't, and now he's going to be like your buddy Tennyson. So he's going to be making that kind of music now too.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And,
he's
you know,
now, like, after we did our session, after we did the journey for those people too, he was just like, he was pumped. He was like, I want to book more
Yeah,
gigs with these things because this is so fun. It's such a different
yeah,
way of in a way performing. He loved it. He really enjoyed it. He wants to do more. So I know when musicians, specifically musicians, experience, actually doing a sound healing, or music healing, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's such a new way to use music that is quite intoxicating. And you're
right.
like, oh my
Yeah,
God, what? We
it
can
blew
do
me
this?
away. Like you, I got
It's
asked to do
so
something,
cool.
and I don't know, yoga tracks or something, and it was like, wow, this is fun.
Yeah, right?
I can make an hour with music and hardly even, breaking a sweat.
Oh, I know.
you
And
know?
and for me, doing breathwork modalities now, like I've been working with some breathwork practitioners and incorporating music into breathwork, and it's so fun and it's so exciting, and it's again another really cool modality. That what are you doing? You're breathing and
Yeah,
absorbing some really nice frequencies. But what are you really doing? You're just
you're just
freaking
breathing.
breathing. But yet it's doing all this stuff and it's activating those energy meridians and it's pumping oxygen all throughout your body and it's getting you literally high in a psychedelic way without taking even a psychedelic. I mean, I've had some of the most psychedelic experiences I've had in the last year have come from breath work, completely sober. I
Exactly,
mean,
right?
it's an and when you're doing that,
It's
that's
a
when you start
gateway.
to wonder like what is our body really capable of? If I'm having literally like what it feels like a mushroom experience without any mushrooms in my body and all I'm doing is breathing consciously with a specific pattern, maybe not. Like what are we really capable of?
So let's talk to the elephant in the room, which is the ethical question. So there are reasons that music therapists are credentialed and board certified. They're actually doing a medical practice, and there's laws that govern that, right? Sound healing, not so much. On the other hand, like I would prefer to go to an acupuncturist who's been trained.
Of course.
Just me. You're gonna be sticking needles in me. I want to know you're trained,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sound healing, not so much. So where's the ethical line on this? I mean, there is one somewhere, and it's highly individual. But generally speaking, where do we make the call on that kind of stuff?
That's such a good question, Bill, because sometimes when things, there's a reason why we want things to be credentialed to some degree. There's a reason why we want, especially with things like acupuncture, when you really are like physically doing something that could go, a different way for sure. You're sticking needles in somebody that might go into a negative direction if you don't know what you're doing, obviously.
Yeah,
So there's very logical reasons why we want to have protocols and trainings and stuff like that. But then sometimes what can happen is that it can also really stifle the growth of those things and also really stop people like you and me from pioneering new modalities, right? Because it's not certified or it's not, credentialed and we don't have the right training, so therefore we can't do it. Well, no, because we want to still be able to pioneer and to create and innovate, right? So
right.
you want to have like a balance, I feel like, because sometimes when things get too rules and regulations and all these things start to come up, and then it becomes also a money grab. Then you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get these things, when in reality you can just really truly learn a lot of these things yourself for not that much and still be just as effective as anyone who's gone through thousands of dollars of training. So there's a balance in there somewhere, and I don't exactly know what that is, but I would trust that with the way that we're all kind of expanding right now, that it would be done in a conscious way at the very least. But I think that at the end of the day, it's got to happen with good intention, like you've talked about before, right? It's the intention behind it is probably the most important thing, because you can have people that are fully certified, and if they're not having good intentions behind what they're doing, then that's still not going to work out well for you. But if you've got someone who isn't certified in any of these things, but they have nothing but the purest, wonderful intentions, you certainly have a good chance of these things being working out well for you.
Yeah, that working out.
And the last thing with music and sound healing specifically is that it's a really tough one to mess up, and it's a really tough one to have hugely detrimental repercussions from not knowing what you're doing. If you screw something up with sound or music healing, there's ways to do it. So, for example, a way that you could screw something up, and that it's been something that I'm aware of when I'm doing these things, because I don't want it to happen, because I know it wouldn't be nice, is you got someone in a really relaxed state of consciousness, and all of a sudden you drop the mallet on the bowl, and it hits something sharp, and
Like if you break the theta state or something,
yeah,
just by dropping a symbol,
yeah, honestly, and
right?
it takes you out of
Yeah.
it, because it would.
So I've got a kind of a story about that. Years ago when I was running a small performance venue, I booked a sound healer. And this was in the middle 2000s. So people that knew about it. And this guy showed up, and his instrument was the gong, and he had a bunch of them. And not only did he have all these gongs, he also had like the Grateful Dead wall of sound. He was going to make sure that we heard every nuance of these gongs. And we did. In fact, it got so loud that several people left.
Yeah.
And, there's a limit to what the human ear can hear without damage.
Yes.
Now, I get that. I really do. I understand the power of the vibration and feeling that internally. But I don't remember if this guy was credentialed or not. That isn't the point. The point is that if your modality is threatening to someone, then this is for you, someone, as you're listening to this, then just get up and leave. I mean, it's really it's not disrespectful. It's caring for yourself. And if your ears can't handle it and you didn't bring earplugs, which, as the concert promoter, I should have probably provided, save your ears, because you only get the ones you've got,
And some people have. So one of my main client for the music sessions, the one-on-one sessions, she has a range where if I start playing the piano, let's see, C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C6 on the piano. For those listening, C6 is just like, the bottom of the piano, the first note of C would be C1, then the next octave higher, C2, etc. So when I'm saying C6, that's just where on the keyboard we're talking about. So it's like a higher, mid to high range note.
Yeah.
We did an experiment before one of the sessions where she's like, when you go up really high to those higher notes on the piano, it actually hurts because she's got a real specific sensitivity to those higher notes. Yeah. I have some people that specifically want to hear those higher kind of twinkly sort of nice sounds on the piano. So we experimented and we found that C6 was kind of her threshold. And if we went over that, it could get a little dicey for her and for her ears because they're sensitive to those frequencies. So I would just make sure I wouldn't play above that. And so that's how I could tailor the situation to her and her specific frequency kind of, let's call it a threshold, in terms of where it starts to actually become a little painful for her. So that's going back to what you said, Bill, which is so important for everyone to really have this with any modality. Forget like the sound of music healing. I mean, this goes for pharmaceuticals. This goes for a traditional Chinese anything.
Firewalking,
like
if it hurts,
psychedelics,
right?
Exactly. If it hurts, if it's not for you, then you got to respect where you're at, and you got to listen to your body. And we're all different. We're all designed differently. And we need to know what works best for us. Just like when you're working with your clients and you're trying to find that perfect song, it is different for every single solitary person on this planet, right? It's not all going to be Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill. It's going to be something different. And so that's why it's important to always respect where you're at, your body, and to know that at the end of the day, we love to put doctors and scientists on these pedestals of like godlike status. And although I love doctors and scientists, and I actually, to me, there's certain scientists that I look at as rock stars because I think they're so awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love science, and I love our medical, experts like doctors and stuff like that. However, they shouldn't be put on such a pedestal because they make mistakes all the time, constantly.
That's
just
science.
As much as
That's what it's about.
That's what it's all about. Science is at best just trying to get some sort of a grasp on what we think is reality right now. And that changes every minute of every day, let alone decade, let alone century. And so we got to look at things a little bit more, not only realistic in terms of, okay, just because this expert said this to me, just because Chris is saying this to me right now on the podcast, doesn't make it necessarily 100% true. I need to make sure that I still can discern for my own self what is best for me, what helps me, what feels good for me. And guess who knows that the best? You do. I don't. Bill doesn't. And any doctor on the planet is not going to always know what's best for you. You got to still have your own self-awareness and be okay with knowing, like, I like this or I don't like this. And that's both are just as valid,
You make a really good point. It's about 80% of my practice is teaching. And the 20% that's actually making sound healing stuff happen, whatever that is necessary. It feels good to do that. But until people sort of learn to speak the language and understand how to receive what they're receiving and articulate the effect that it's, so you're teaching people how to communicate what's happening to them in a way that is foreign for a lot of us.
Oh, big time.
Obviously in Stranger Things we get it, but if Running Up That Hill is not your favorite song, you wouldn't choose it. You would choose some other song in that situation, right? That is really meaningful and completely burned into your entire being as your escape hatch, right? And so helping people to understand what that music is, that's new for a lot of people. I know I like this song, I like that song. It's way beyond like. We're talking about like gut level here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Running Up That Hill, but it's not the song I would have chosen something else, right? For me, because it's not about like.
No, it's about something deeper than that.
It's way deeper than that. And you can see them scrambling, in Stranger Things, they're trying to find the right tape. Like, what is it? And so they're really conscious of this. Well, that's a new awareness that sound healing gives you too, which is how does this really resonate within me? Am I getting the right frequencies? Is it hurting my ears? Those kinds of things. I got to do some work, ancient history now in the 90s with the guys who were working on debunking the Mozart effect. Remember that whole thing? Listening to Mozart makes you smarter.
Right.
And their conclusion at that time was it isn't really Mozart because birdsong has the same effect as Mozart. It's those high frequency, not like aggressive high frequencies, but those high frequency things tend to stimulate us mentally. It's like, okay, well, that's cool, provided it doesn't hurt your ears.
Well, that's the thing. Like, and with what we're doing, like with Stranger Things is a great example of like trying to scramble around and find that perfect song. Well, it's like, once you find that song for yourself, and you can listen to it consciously, that's where you start to feel this power of like, it feels like your whole body can just start to, the hairs go up on your skin, or you start to immediately kind of get that frog in your throat, or start the tears start to almost automatically
ASMR kicks in, and
all of these things start to happen just when you really can start to get better at focusing in on that song. And I look at the character Max in Stranger Things, where the rest of I still haven't finished that season yet, but for the next episodes, she's literally got her headset on and she's got that record or that tape on loop just so that she can stay alive, stay safe. But you kind of take that out of the show context, and I start to see, like, isn't that going to be in a lot of ways our future with this, where people will just be like, oh, I got a headache, hold on, let me just put my headphones on, I'll put on my headache CD, or, not CD obviously, but like sounds or Spotify accounts that have like all these modalities that are perfect for headaches. Okay, great. I'm going to listen to my headache music now, and get rid of my headache. Instead of popping an Advil, I'm going to put my headphones on and do the exact same thing. Like, that's what I see being more of the future, is just this way of putting on the headphone and letting that be the medicine, so to speak.
Right there with you, and preparing ahead of time, because probably none of us are ever going to be captured by Vecna and need a song to escape. But I hope, right? But the symbolic journey there, the shadow journey, the hero's journey. What's your music for the shadow journey, right?
Yes.
What's your music for compassion? What's your music for headaches? What's your music for, when your kids trigger you? What's your music for making love? There's so many things here where just becoming aware of the music that really supports you and the thing that you're doing, whatever that is the big opportunity. I mean, people ought to become song hunters, Go out there and what is your music for compassion, Bill? Oh gosh, I don't know. Let me find out. I haven't thought about that. And then you have to figure it out. Like, what is that deeply ingrained song that just lights you up when it comes to offering compassion?
Or what's your song for anger when you're?
Or what's your song for anger? Yeah, right. Like, let's.
Everything else in between. I mean, that's the beauty, right? Like, we have a gold mine here of
so much
of something that we can just use to pretty much help us with anything going on, and that extends into our physical modalities. Part of what I'm doing with my client is helping her through. The main reason she's with me is because she was going through, and continually, but actually has gotten a lot better, going through a very difficult physical time, like dealing with cancer and a couple of other really difficult modalities, different difficult things happening to her physical body. Yet she's coming to me for sound healing because it's helping so many parts of her healing journey with those things. What is it doing specifically? Both of us have no idea. She's a scientist herself, interestingly enough. And yet we both know that the results are speaking for themselves, and that she's doing a lot better, and something's happening, as we've joked about in some of our sessions, where she's like, I don't know what's going on. Chris, but it's something's working. Something's working. Like we
Yeah.
still both don't really know what it is, but something's working, and that's the cool thing, that it's like this is going beyond even just all the emotional things we're talking about. Like, yeah, you're gonna have a song or a sound or a specific frequency for all the emotions, all the feelings we go through in our lives, so the journeys. But we're also gonna have sound and music for all the different physical things, like you said, recreational, fun things, or health things, physical things, even like pain, physical pain relief. Your different internal organs that are having problems. Well, there's certain frequencies that do resonate with those internal organs, and why not tap into that, right? So
Exactly.
this is endless. This is literally infinite what we can be doing with these things. And interestingly enough, some of my research into ancient history, ancient alternative history. When I was in Egypt, there was some local Egyptologists who like to talk about Egypt from a much different lens, not the Western perspective that we get taught in school. But in Egypt, they don't even. Egypt used to not be called Egypt; it used to be called Kem or Kemet, the land of, I believe, the black sand or something to that effect. And what they taught me about was that these people were, again, highly advanced, and this is this all different perspective on who these people were. But one of the cool things they showed me in one of the areas I was in just outside of Cairo was an ancient healing chamber, and they said that the people who wanted to be healed would lie down on this granite with crystal, of course, this crystal granite block, and they would lay down, and then in this a separate room, the doctor of the time, the healer, would put his or her hands on two granite pillars, sort of like rectangular pillars that come out of the ground and then lead into the other room where the patient's sitting on the granite slab of like a
Cool.
bed almost. And they would literally somehow be either sending, let's maybe call it Reiki energy, for lack
Yeah.
of a better
Yeah.
term, right now through the granite, through the crystal granite pillars into the other room, and then it would come through the bed, the crystal granite bed that the patient's lying on, and it would do all sorts of things. And it looked like an ancient yet maybe more high-tech version of what we would see now in a very high-tech operating room, where they're in a different room with the machine doing all the operation, the cuts and the stitches and all the other things, and the doctors are operating this machine in another room. It's like that equivalent, but in the ancient past. And what were they doing, though? They were using vibration, they were using frequency, they were using all these different things. And this is coming from some really interesting wisdom keepers from Egypt or the land of Kem. And I was just thinking then, when I was there, I'm like, wow, isn't that interesting that once again we're coming back into this remembrance of things that I swear we've already known about, and we go in cycles, I think, a lot of the time. And right now we're kind of we're going back, or we're coming into an interesting new version of this old way of learning, and of healing through sound and frequency. And it's cool now because we're gonna have the new high tech world that we live in mesh with this old, frequency based, body based way of, like, we all have the abilities to heal ourselves within ourselves, but we're going to have that and all the cool tech to help us get there as well. So we're in this really fun age of, I'm not against technology. I think technology is awesome. And I just think it's going to be such a cool fusion of these ancient practices and our new kind of versions of those practices fused together.
Definitely. Completely agree with you on this. It's so awesome to see the ancient being delivered in the modern high-tech way. I mean, you can get any
Mm-hmm.
music you want. I mean, seriously, you can get any music you want
Yeah.
online. And we didn't have that 30 years ago.
Or even
We
20 years
started
ago,
to have
really.
it 20 years ago, but
Yeah.
now it's like anything. And yeah, okay, so there's a lot of it out there, you know, but you can make sense of it. We've got tools for that too. And if it hurts, stop is kind of like the ethical
Yeah.
mark in the ground there. If it's not, then play around with it. Get curious.
Yeah.
And I know you've got to go, buddy. Let's pick this topic up again and sort of unpack it a little bit more deeply,
I like
because
it.
there's such a need right now. And literally anyone who wants to become a sound healer, you can start with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. That's how Bill and myself definitely started our journeys. This all came because I needed it. I was in desperate need of many forms of therapy, and music, I know for both of us, has always been our number one since we were kids.
Yeah.
But then expanding on that, looking into binaural beats, all these other things, I did all of that because I needed it first and foremost. And you're right. This is something we should definitely expand upon. And for those listening, I think one of the main maybe takeaways from this episode I'd like to leave you with, and Bill, you let me know what you think too, because we did talk about a lot of good stuff here. I would say one of the main takeaways is yeah, you know best. You know best what is going to work for you. Have fun with it, experiment with it, enjoy it, but also trust yourself. And we got to get it to a point, I think, where we trust ourselves a lot more than we give our trust away, I think, a lot in the society. We give our trust away, again, to the doctors, to the scientists, to the government, all these institutions. And, there should be some form of trust, although, that's another conversation in and of itself, why we might not trust those institutions as much right now. But I think at the end of the day, no matter what's going on in your life, I think trusting ourselves is so important. So here's a great exercise in being able to trust yourself, which is go experiment with all these different modalities, see which ones work for you.
Sure.
And the ones that don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, don't feel bad.
Just because it works for us, you're not broken. Just because it works for Bill, just because it works for me, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And that's okay. Find out what works for you and just trust yourself in your own journey and your own almost barometer, right? To be able to understand what does and doesn't work for you.
And hey, if you've got questions, if you're listening to a particular artist, a particular song, reach out to the artist, start hitting them up and say, I was listening to this and it did this to me and help me understand and see where that goes, because I think that's a common endeavor. We're all interested in why these things work, right? And they don't work the same way all the time. And, it's going to be ages before science catches up. But in the meantime, do your own inquiry.
Yeah.
Right?
And certainly hit us up if you have any
hit us up.
too.
We're here for questions. We're pretty public about this stuff and happy to take your questions. So, online, in person, over the phone, Zoom, whatever, just find us and we'll be happy to help.
Absolutely.
And we won't get too heavy. I promise you that.
We're fun guys, I swear.
We're fun guys. Yeah, we're not going to be all somber sound healing.
We're still musicians at the end of the day.
Chris, I was in this recording session last night, and I'm wearing normal stuff. I'm wearing stuff like I'm wearing now, and the videographer looks over at me and says, "Bill, is that what you're wearing?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I'm wearing." He's like, "You're not going to put on any kind of Buddhist robe or something like that." And guys, it isn't really like that. I'm the gateway. Music happens. And I'm not interested in being, your guru, like Tony Robbins says. It's about you as you're listening and what effect that has. If it's not my music, it doesn't matter. Find somebody else's music that works. It's no pride of ownership. It's about your healing. And that is the point. That is the real point.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you for listening in on our conversation and for taking time to show your appreciation with a like, share, or subscribe. Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness is a practice of spontaneity, and we welcome your comments, ideas, and questions. There are ways to connect with us in the show notes, so let us hear from you. Until next time, this is Bill Peratzman along with Chris Noble wishing you great musical health. Samara Huchaya.